Um, right. Hello, hello, hello. I believe this is our fifth of the series, Navigating Grief Gracefully. And today we're going to try and focus on this whole notion of how you support someone else who's going through grief. I think we've touched on elements of it as we've been going, but that kind of is where we're going to focus today because this is important in that context. So I'm going to start with this piece here. Let me put it in the chat, and then we'll see where we go with it. This is called Potent Presence. Presence is more potent than presentation. Presence is energy transmitted beyond mere words. Presence owes its potency to deep inner work, seeking out and dislodging all those inner blocks, unleashing that innate potency of your unfiltered self. Presence that resonates and activates those blessed to be in your presence. I'm going to read that again. Potent presence. Presence is more potent than presentation. Presence is energy transmitted beyond mere words. Presence owes its potency to deep inner work, seeking out and dislodging all those inner blocks, unleashing that innate potency of your unfiltered self. Presence that resonates and activates those blessed to be in your presence. What are you hearing here?
Presence
Mm-hmm.
is energy
Oh,
transmitted beyond mere words.
I love that.
And instantly my mind goes back to Job and his friends, where I think they probably sat for 3 days without anyone saying a word. And
Mm,
one might wonder what transpired in those hours or days.
mm,
And what you have just read encapsulate all that would have happened. Not one word spoken, but yet still mountains were moved, and barriers were torn down, chains were broken, yet not one verbal word was expressed. I mean, that's a power of presence.
yeah,
Wow.
no, I hear that.
Mm.
I hear that reflection. Um, yeah, yeah. I've got things I can say about that, but I'm curious to hear what Claudette's got for us in this one. She looked like she's taking an exam, isn't
Yeah, I am. I like presence is more potent than presentation.
Mm-hmm.
I like that because that's about turning up as your authentic self and
Mm,
not the rehearsed or self or the self wearing the mask.
mm,
And when we turn up as our present self, we can give off more positive energy, more positive energy than we're probably aware of, than if we were merely presenting ourselves.
mm. I hear that.
I just think this is about self-awareness and about being present in any moment, in any given time. Just be yourself, be present, be there, even when you're talking to somebody, be present.
Mm,
I like that, Claudette. I really like that because I remember I being in a session with this young lady, and when she came in, I closed down my laptop. I put my notebook on the table, closed it, and put my pen on top of the notebook, and I leaned forward. And for the session, I just listened. And she said to me, My mom pays £80 an hour to persons who are specialists, and I've gotten more from you in this session that I've gotten from any session that I've ever been to. Sure, because I think she realized I was just listening. But whatever she was saying, there was communication happening beyond mere words that were spoken. And she felt the genuine sincerity of what she was saying. It's almost as if I became a vacuum, and she spoke of things that she said, I have never said anything and this to anyone in my entire life. I'm actually surprised that I'm saying this to you. So I'm thinking just the whole issue of present, what it carries and what it does to the person who is on the other end, wanting to speak or wanting to release what is happening in their own lives.
Yeah, and that presence, what does it do? What does it do? It can do a lot for a person who you're supporting, that they feel your presence. They can feel that you're really listening to them. They can feel that you're interested in what they've got to say, and not making it about yourself.
Yeah. No, I hear that. There's so much to look at in what you all have said, really. The first thing I want to talk about is this idea of energy. Because I think a lot of people don't realize at the quantum level, we're all energy.
Yes.
At that level of presentation, we're all energy.
Mm.
And words layer on top of that, but they don't always align with energy, right? Because if it's not authentic, words will come out, but it won't carry the power of energy to communicate with the other person or connect with the other person if it doesn't have the authenticity of the energy of the person speaking it behind it, right? So that alignment and that's why the piece talks about this deep inner work, removing the inner blocks. So the things that might stop you feeling that you couldn't be yourself, if you can do that inner work so that you're willing to show up as your true self, even if you don't speak a word, if really you're there in service of the other person, just to listen and be present with them, to say, I am here with you, and know that that will be enough, then the power of acceptance and belonging that you communicate is so powerful that it resonates with the energy of the other person. And then it begins to create the kind of space you're talking to her, but where someone wouldn't be able to explain with words. Do you see, again, the words of the layer above? They've already experienced it energetically, right? So from the energetic resonance, they begin to feel safe. And that safety allows them to be and belong, and therefore to feel like they can express without judgment.
Yes, yes, I love that.
That's the part.
Yes, I love that last part, Frank, because I think that's the real issue. The authentic self will turn up a lot of time when there is a sense that whatever state I am in, whatever vulnerabilities will be expressed, I know I will not be judged because I am free. It's a safe space, and it's a free space to be what I call to be naked in the garden, but yet not be ashamed. Because you were naked before, you weren't ashamed. But something happened that the whole entire thing just got crazy and messed up. And all of a sudden, oh, I'm naked and I'm ashamed. Versus you were naked all along. Why weren't you ashamed?
No, I hear that. And we do talk about that a lot in coaching circles. We talk about unconditional positive regard is the way it's positioned. And the idea behind that really is saying, if someone feels that you're not judging them, then they'll feel safe enough to share what's true for them. And until someone is sharing what's true for them, the process of healing cannot truly begin. The process of restoration. And bearing in mind, the context of all of this is grief. So you have shown up to support someone who is experiencing grief. And what we're really saying is, if all you did, as you talked about Job's experience there, he lost a lot of members of his family at once, so that's multiple grief in one, and these people just came to sit with him without words. That shows us that even if we don't have the right words to speak, as long as we show up and we've done our own inner work where we're not uncomfortable with the idea of grief, then we can be with people who are experiencing grief without feeling we need to fix them, without feeling we need to that recognizing that just being there with them and saying, I'm here with you is enough, is powerful enough to allow their grief to unfold without judgment.
Yes. I had an interesting session yesterday where, and it's good when you can recognize your own growth. I had this session yesterday with someone who was really going through a whole lot. And the session took place, and several times in the session, there was a lull for sometimes even a minute of silence. And I was quite comfortable with that. I was quite at ease. I didn't think I need to say something to fill in the gap. And when I was finished, I said to my session, you realize that you're going, boy? Because the old me would want to have to put something in to fill in the gap. But I'm realizing now that too is a part of the healing process.
Yeah, no, thank you for sharing that. That is powerful. The idea of allowing the space to exist, and not trying to jump in there and fix and do and say something. And because there's power in silence. I don't think a lot of people recognize that.
Yeah.
There's power in silence because in silence, things are allowed to be. And as they be, they begin to take their own evolution and shape within the silence. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. It's wonderful to have lived experiences to kind of shed light on some of these things. Claudette, were you going to say something?
No, I was just agreeing and saying yes, that because sometimes it's hard when you're listening to someone, and when there's that gap of silence, you do feel the urge to, oh, I need to say something, or I need to respond, and sometimes you just have to bite your tongue and say to yourself, no, no, you have to all back. You know what I mean? You have to hold back yourself.
Yeah.
And that's not always an easy thing, especially if it's something that you've gone similar to what you've gone through. You feel like you want to go in there and throw you all in, where sometimes that's the worst thing you could do.
Yeah, especially when you then end up saying something that makes things worse. Like, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? The other thing about this thing we're talking about, silence, is that actually sometimes when we rush to close silence, is because we ourselves are the ones who are uncomfortable with silence. So that is an indication that you need some more inner work to do on yourself so that you can be at peace with silence. And that's why the piece talks about this deep inner work, removing the inner blocks. So when you have, and that's why to support someone through grief, you yourself need to work on yourself, right? And when you work on yourself, then you're able. Hi, Lauren. Hi, Esther. Then it means that you are able better to hold space for someone else to experience grief. And that's why we started this journey by looking at ourselves first before we started talking about supporting other people through grief. So I'm going to put the next piece in, and then we'll kind of look at what that says to us. So this piece is called Judged Opinion. I'll read it. It is my considered opinion. This is the best way to be. As this self-appointed judge questions your right to be that, what shall it be? I'll read that again, judged opinion. It is my considered opinion. This is the best way to be. As this self-appointed judge questions your right to be that, what shall it be? What's coming up for you as you hear that? Again, I point out the fact that the context of all this is how we show up to support other people who are experiencing grief.
What is sticking out is just the word opinion. It's not a
Okay.
fact.
Okay, say more.
Because sometimes I think on both sides, sometimes someone's opinion can come across as if it's a fact, when in truth, it's just like Paul saying, listen, if you can be like me and not get married, that's not what we call, is it a description or is it a prescription?
Yeah.
But sometimes I think both things get confused and we take something and run off and say, oh, this is a prescription, when Somebody was just expressing their own opinions.
I hear that. I hear, but so is this idea of if an opinion is an opinion, then how do you hold it as an opinion rather than holding it as if it's a fact? Which I can see where the piece might be kind of going, okay, if it's an opinion, why why is that the stance? The stance doesn't seem to align with the idea that it's an opinion. The stance is looking different. I hear that. Thank you very much, Howard. Anything else on this?
What I'm sensing from this one is when we're there supporting somebody who's grieving, we are not there to judge how the person turns up. We're there to accept how they turn up without casting our own opinions as to how they're grieving, or we're not there for that. I just think we're there to accept who they are when they turn up and accept their story and not to judge them, because it's very easy to put your own spin on somebody else's story when they're talking to you.
Yeah.
I've heard persons say and sometimes I wonder, is it ignorance? Come on, man, get over that, man. I mean, yes, mom is gone, but you're still here. And
yeah,
Jesus, good God.
No, but you laugh though, but it's true though. This is some of the things, and for me personally, I want to frame it that I want to assume that everybody's trying to do the best they can, right? So I want to be very careful at not really making people who might have made those kind of mistakes feel bad about it. But it's really for us to reflect really deeply and understand. Some of those people think that that's the best way they can help that person, right? They want to fix something for them. They want to flip them. They want to reframe them. They want to do all sorts of things to them.
Yeah.
But before you get permission to speak into someone's situation, you need to first come to accept, as Claudette is saying, that this is their reality.
Yeah. I totally love what you just said a while ago, Frank, because as I had the convention again yesterday, we had to take some time to look at intent, because someone may have said something or done something to you, and deep within your heart, you know that this person could never mean what I am understanding or what I think they said. And you'll beat yourself up and you'll carry bitterness and anger. When in truth, and in fact, when you step back and you think of because I spoke about the word issue of when you go to court, one of the biggest things in court is intent. And that's why you have manslaughter. It wasn't intentional, it wasn't premeditated. But yes, the car went off the road and somebody died. And that was how they were able to step back and realize they've been carrying something and thinking of something and looking at something in a way that in truth and in fact they really shouldn't have been, because the intent is a critical thing to look at.
Yeah, no, I hear that. Now that's why we're trying to educate ourselves on this and try and share best practice. So if we're ever in a situation where we need to support someone in grief, it's recognizing that I have an opinion based on maybe my experience, going back to what Claudette was saying earlier. Maybe I had an experience of grief and I was able to get over this in 2 months, but I noticed 2 years you're still at it. What's going on? That sort of thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But kind of going, okay, it's my considered opinion that potentially you could do it in this amount of time, but my reality my understanding of your reality is actually it's taking you longer to process this. And I can't assume that you should be the way that I am in order to do it. I, for example, have a very high threshold for dissociation, which means it's easier for me to draw distance between something that has happened and the emotions I have about it. Now, it took me a long time to realize not everybody has the same threshold of dissociation. And neither is it necessarily helpful, because the flip side of that is maybe something that you should be kind of really up about, you're too calm about it. Do you understand what I'm saying? So There's a part of it and there's also a shadow of it. You understand what I'm saying? So the idea that because you can do this and this, and your grief was handled in this way, and therefore you go and support someone else and expect and begin to place the same expectation on them, that that's how they should be. And if they're not, something is wrong. That's where now you're not supporting, you may be harming. And I don't mean that in a horrible way, but in an emotional way. You may actually not be helping. And in fact, going back to our first piece, you're probably better off just offering presence rather than presentation. Because your presentation at that point, if it's based on you thinking they should grieve the way you grieved, you will then be doing more harm. You will not be doing good. So if you don't have something better to offer someone who's grieving, be there with them. Let them know you're there for them. Right? Hi, Esther. Good to see you.
An example of that is I work with some people who I talk to people on the phone who's gone through a stroke.
Mm.
And the whole idea is that I use my experience to support them. But when I'm using my experience to support them, I have to be very mindful that their stroke journey is not my stroke journey. So sometimes when they ask me, when I'm asked about my stroke, I have to, first thing I have to say is I can share certain things with them, but I do always have to say to them, everybody's stroke journey is different. Everybody feels the loss or the changes in a different way, and everybody cope with it in different ways. Yeah, we have some things in common, but it's not exactly the same. That's why everybody's recovery is different, because you can end up, people, especially if they see you're further on than them in your stroke journey, and they're nowhere near where they want to be, or they're struggling, they can start to feel, what am I doing wrong? Why I'm not recovering as quick as this person that I'm talking to, and they start to compare, and it can leave people feeling very worried, as if to say, "What's wrong? Is there something else wrong with me?" And
Yeah,
that,
I love
but
that.
also, but equally, when you've had an illness or a sickness or something that comes and it turns your life upside down, turns yourself as a person upside down, that physically, psychologically, sometimes people don't realize. They look at the physical and they think, oh yes, you had a stroke. Oh, you're all right now, aren't you? You know what I mean? Oh, they go, you're all right. Or you might, and you'll say, yeah, well, I'm getting there. It's a challenge every day. Oh yeah, but you can get up and you can get dressed and you can do certain things. I said, yeah, but the effects of the stroke is still there. What they don't understand is the emotional and psychological effect of a stroke is always there. It's always there in some shape or form. No matter what you look like physically, it's always there. And you don't get back. I will never be how I was before I had the stroke. Never. There's certain things I have to live with that people don't see. They call it the hidden disability, but people don't see that I have to live with, but nobody would know because it's not something that they can see. And
Yeah,
unless I go around telling everybody, so you can sometimes you have to be, sometimes it's annoying when sometimes people, they want to support you, but when they come out with, oh, you're all right now, you start to think, well, what do you know?
and that is a perfect place for me to interject, really, in that is the point, that when you're not so invested in your opinion, you can be open to learn what is the reality that's actually at play.
Yeah.
Then you will know how best to support someone, because ultimately, as well, really you should be supporting someone with the information that is relevant to the situation they're in, rather than assuming that the experience you have had or opinions you have are the facts, going back to what Herbert was saying earlier regarding this. I'm curious, we've got Lauren with us. Have you got any thoughts on this, Lauren?
Not yet.
Okay.
Not yet.
Okay, that's all right. Okay, so let me put the next one in. Right, this piece is called Suffering. Suffering from a bad dealt hand. I must also deal with your insensitivity. Feeling like an alien in my own land. Treated like an outcast because you failed to understand. It's not a crime not to know. Won't cost the world just to ask. I don't really understand. Please explain your lived experience. What do you need from me? What can I do to make it better? I'll go back again. Suffering. Suffering from a bad dealt hand. I must also deal with your insensitivity. Feeling like an alien in my own land. Treated like an outcast because you fail to understand. It's not a crime not to know. Won't cost the world just to ask. I don't really understand. Please explain your lived experience. What do you need from me? What can I do to make it better?
I'm seeing where your actions of failing to understand is the cause of feeling like an alien, is the cause of being treated like an outcast. So the act that you do or the words that you say, it is impacting upon the person. If we're talking about, as we're talking about the issue of grieving, in such a way that to feel like an alien, they have almost lost themselves. And in an environment where you are already in Lodibar, you're now being treated like an outcast. And it's just to be very mindful of how we turn up in that space to that person, because we may be doing severe harm. Because for the person to feel like an outcast, I'm just thinking of what an alien is. The space that they normally occupy, the space that they normally, whatever, all of a sudden, all of that is absolutely brand new. I've lost myself. And in that space, people can also, they lose their very mind. That they look in the mirror, they can't recognize themselves. I've seen where some persons, they have stopped showering. Some persons, they normally have bald head like mine, and the hair has grown long, long beard, and almost unrecognizable. And that is the part of the alien I'm thinking of, where you stop even taking care of yourself.
No, I hear that. I hear that. Mm. And it reminds me of something that Claudette said when we were looking at the previous piece, which is this idea of if not care is not taken, people begin to compare their experiences with your experience that you've posited as what you think should be normal, and start feeling like they're the strange ones, that something's wrong with them, something's broken with them, because their experience is not mirroring the one you had, and you bring that into the space. Claudette, anything from you on this one?
Just that sometimes, you know, we have good intentions when we set out to support people.
Mhm.
Well, I like to think that everybody has good intentions anyway. But I think sometimes those good intentions can come across insensitive
Mhm.
to what that person is going through. And that insensitivity can lead that person to feeling like an outcast and an alien because of the way that they've been, you know, they haven't been handled with, well, the issue hasn't been handled with sensitivity. And sometimes I think the second part is saying, you know, it's okay if you don't know, you can ask. There's
Yeah.
nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong in asking. Ask the person, how can I best support you? You know, what can I do? Is there anything I can do to make you feel better, rather than just keep doing what you think that person needs, which
Yeah.
could be which could be causing them to feel, you know, even worse than they did before they started speaking to you.
Well, this is the thing. This is the thing. I think that's a common theme in what we're talking about is like, do no harm, don't make it worse. In other words, don't increase the suffering, which is why the piece looks at the word suffering. Because I normally talk about this second arrow. The person is grieving because they have a loss. You have come sincerely, as we hope, to support them and help them. But if you're not sensitive to their own context and ask the right kind of questions so you know how best to support them, you could then come in and make it worse by adding suffering to suffering. And that's what we're trying to avoid. If we have these conversations and talk amongst ourselves and help spread the word that, look, there's nothing wrong in asking. It's better to ask, you know, this is my lived experience. I know your lived experience is different. How are you feeling? How are you experiencing this? And how can I best support you in this? Because they could end up going back to what we said in our first piece. I just need to know that someone's here with me, and that's it. They may not need you to say anything. Because I think one of the tendencies we have is this radical positivity that we want to press upon someone who's going through grief. Like it's almost like we're saying the grief is not welcome. They need to be cheerful and find all the ways to reframe everything they've experienced. And what people don't recognize is that subconsciously people receive that as meaning their grief is not welcome and that there's something wrong with them because they're in that grief. So it's kind of that idea of asking the questions, or even if you're offering something, offering it with what I call a receipt. And what do I mean by that? If someone wants to return it, they don't feel bad returning it because there's a receipt. So that's the idea that, you know, when I went through so, I found blah, blah, blah to be helpful. I don't know, would that be helpful for you? Or is that something you would be good for? You know what I'm saying? So you're not saying you should do this should be that, this should be that. So even when you're offering something that you felt worked for you and may work for them, you offer it with the understanding that you're not attached to them receiving it. And if it doesn't work for them, it's easy, they can easily disregard it. So again, you're not imposing that on people. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Anything else on this one before I put the next piece in?
When you said own, when you said own land, it just seemed to me like your pain is like your fingerprint, you know, it's unique.
Okay.
Yeah.
I hear what you're saying.
Maybe there's no understanding that can be had of your pain. It's just different from every pain that exists. So it means then that there's no probably solution to the pain also. Just
I hear that. I hear that. I hear that.
I understand, or I went through it too. By saying that, it's like they're saying that 100% I know how to fix it, or I know what you are doing.
Yeah. I love what you said there, Lauren, about that idea of your own land being defined by your own unique way of experiencing that pain, your own unique way of going through that grieving process. Thank you so much for that framing. Okay, let me put this next one in and see what we see from it. Right. This is called feeling bad. Empathy. Feeling the pain of another. Feeling bad for the pain of another. Needing to be faithful to the mood. Amplifying the energy of the pain. A vortex in motion. Where is the energy that turns this thing around? How is your feeling so bad helping them feel better? I'm going to read that again. Feeling bad. Empathy. Feeling the pain of another. Feeling bad for the pain of another. Needing to be faithful to the mood. Amplifying the energy of the pain. A vortex in motion. Where is the energy that turns this thing around? How is your feeling so bad helping them feel better? What are you hearing here?
And I think you can feel, you can empathize with other people when they're going through stuff. So you can empathize with what they're going through and all things. But I think it becomes more trickier when you start to feel bad for them. I think empathizing with their experiences, yeah, of what they're going through. But when you make their experience make you feel bad, then it leaves you in no you're in no position to support them.
That is an interesting insight. Yeah. That is
Because you
an
because you've taken on a different role.
Yeah. And you're pointing to the small distinction that we're trying to pull out here about that. Because some people see it as the same thing.
Yeah.
Some people see it as the same thing and don't see that distinction. So that's why the piece is here for us to explore. Is it the same thing? And what's the pros and cons of it? Herbert, I see that face on you. What's going on?
I'm just thinking of it in the context of just, is it a play on words where I am removing the word energy
Mm-hmm.
and I'm replacing the word energy with compassion,
Mm.
amplifying the compassion of the pain,
Mm.
a vortex in motion. Where is the compassion? And it is the compassion that will turn things around. And
Mm.
I'm going in the direction where a lot of the miracles that Jesus did, it
Mm.
says, and being filled with compassion.
Mm.
And it seems as if that it is that overwhelming compassion that compels, that expels and dispels whatever, whether it was blindness, whether it was cripple, that thing which is called compassion. He's always so filled with it. And it comes up every time something significant is to be shifted and moved.
Yeah. No, I hear that.
So is it compassion? Is compassion sitting alongside feeling bad?
No, that's the point. And this is the reason why we're having this conversation is to make that distinction.
Yeah,
Compassion, empathy, they're great, but
yeah,
they're about sitting with someone, recognizing that they've been impacted by something. But like you rightfully said earlier on, Claudette, that is different from I take it on. I now begin to feel bad that you are having that experience, and I'm stuck in that feeling bad that you're having that experience and I'm not fixing it for you and I'm not doing this for you. And do you see what I'm saying? So
mm,
the idea is that how do you sit with somebody recognizing there's pain there, but still reserving your capacity to be on your side of the fence to now offer the support? Because when you are lost in the same thing they're lost in, who is helping who? That is the question.
yeah.
It's very subtle. You're right, Herbert. It is subtle, but it's important. Because some people don't see the difference, and therefore what they end up doing actually is when you now take on the pain of the other person to the extent where all your role is just amplifying that pain. It's like almost I'm here to come and feel sorry with you,
Yes.
which is different from I'm here to support the pain that you're going through. So then you don't have the capacity to support because the energy now is being used up in the same
Mhm.
vortex of the other person's energy. So where what is holding what for what, then you're not able to hold the space. It's like you, so this is the equivalent. Let's go back to you, Herbert, the sessions you've so wonderfully described that you've had. If you had gotten so lost in the other person's experience that you're unable to hold the space that is listening and saying it's okay, then would you have been as effective? That's the question. Anything else coming up in this?
Mhm.
All right. I'm going to put another piece in there. This piece is called Angel. I bumped into an angel, disguised in human flesh. I had not a clue what this would mean. I've been speaking to an angel in language that made sense to me. No idea where it would lead, just knew it was meant to be. I have been served by an angel, gifted with presence as a present. Nothing asked of me but to shine and be seen. I have been touched by an angel, opened my eyes to see so I could see that under my disguise was an angel staring back at me. And read that again, angel. I bumped into an angel, disguised in human flesh. I had not a clue what this would mean. I've been speaking to an angel in language that made sense to me. No idea where it would lead, just knew it was meant to be. I have been served by an angel, gifted with presence as a present, nothing asked of me but to shine and be seen. I have been touched by an angel, opened my eyes so I could see that under my disguise was an angel staring back at me. Got that lovely smile across your face, Herbert.
I remember having a conversation with my wife this week, and I said to her, one of the things the Lord has been sharing with me is that, listen, let me get real with you, son. Nobody's coming to save you.
Mm.
And for many people, they have spent their entire life waiting for someone to come and save them out of whatever situation and condition there is.
Mm.
But in this, it is saying that, yes, you're going through your grief. And like David said, he had to turn to himself. He had to encourage himself. And I'm not saying everybody, has been there and has done that. But what it is saying is that there is a space and there is a place that does exist, that for some people, they have that capacity to look within themselves because there is no one else.
Mm.
And I guess based on how we are built, there is something that is within us that is greater than ourselves. And for some people, they have been fortunate enough to have lay hold of that thing. And in their darkest of time, they have had to lay hold of that and pull it out. And in pulling it out, they are looking in the mirror and they are realizing, it's not all that bad after all. And nobody said that to them. It is they who have found that resolve by virtue of looking deep within.
I hear that. I see it. So what I'm hearing you is narrowing in on that last verse where it's talking about there's an angel staring back at you. In other words, recognizing the angel in you, basically.
Yes, yes.
Is what I'm hearing. Okay. Thank you very much for that. There is certainly that to it, and there's other things as well in there. Anybody else on this one?
This could be talking about the person who's doing the supporting.
Yeah, go on.
Can you read it again?
Yeah, angel. I bumped into an angel disguised in human flesh. I had not a clue what this would mean. I have been speaking to an angel in language that made sense to me. No idea where it would lead, just knew it was meant to be. I have been served by an angel, gifted with presence as a present. Nothing asked of me but to shine and be seen. I have been touched by an angel, opening my eyes so I could see that under my disguise was an angel staring back at me.
So it's like you have a responsibility to help to heal yourself.
There is that. There is that. Before I kind of expound the whole piece, I want to hear if Claudette's got anything else on this, and then I'm going to kind of go through it and see. You'll see where some of the things that could come from it.
To me, this sounds like a little bit like, you know, like when you support somebody, right? And if you support them in a way that meets their needs, you almost empower them to look at their own resources within themselves that they've got, that they probably didn't even think of. But because of you, your presence and your energy, and you've given them the support to match their needs, they can then see that they have a lot more that they could bring to the table in their own situation than they first thought before they even had that encounter with you.
Yeah. In fact, I don't need to expand the piece because that's really what the piece is saying. That is what the piece is saying, is that sometimes, and it's this interplay that obviously a lot of people, especially people who are spiritual, are always looking for this out of the world power to come and hit them, and then that will take things away. And it's this idea that, okay, what if the angels are already in your environment? What is that human being that has come to sit with you? Going back to what Herbert was saying about Job's people who came to sit with him. Those were his angels. They have come to support him, to be with him. And going back to what Claude is saying, if they've been with him in a way where they're not adding to his suffering, but they're there to support and lighten the load of his suffering, then in that way, but also in a way that empowers the person. So it doesn't say you're always going to need me, and without me, you can't get through this. It's kind of, I'm here to show you it's possible to get through this. And here are the things that you have as a resource that can help you get through this. So Herbert, going back to what you were saying, if someone then points to you that, oh, you have the capacity, there are things in you that you can use to support yourself when people like us are not here to come and do it. Then you begin to create an environment where ultimately you leave them on their own journey and they feel more powerful, more resourced to go through that grieving journey. But also, here's where it gets interesting. They become the angel for the next person who will be going through grieving.
Yes.
So then we pay it forward. So we have done our inner work. We're now able to support other people through grief in a way that helps them see that they're resourced to do so. As they come through their journey, they're now empowered and resourced to pass it forward. And therefore, we begin to create a place where grieving is normalized, grieving is supported in a way that's helpful and not adding to the suffering. And more people are seeing the resilience and the power that dwells within themselves to be able to not only go through it without being destroyed, but going back to something you said, actually, Herbert, this idea of an identity that gets transformed. No, I think it was Claudette, actually, you were saying that you will never be the same person again after the stroke, just like grieving as well. You'll never be the same person again. You'll be a different person. But that is not the end of the world. How do you then make peace with that new identity? How do you leverage what's good, what's new, what's true, what wisdom has come from that new identity? So again, part of how you're doing that, Claudia, is supporting other people. Now you are a resource to support other people who are going through that experience in a way that is helpful for them, in a way that helps them see that they're a resource. So it's just being paid forward. And who knows who those people will go and support after you finish supporting them. We don't know, right?
There's a parallel that exists between us and the trees, where the part that comes out of the ground, it is aided by the sunshine and people who may come and may put pesticides and different things on it to help the tree to grow. But while all of this is happening, the rooting system has no help. It's underneath the ground, and everything that it needs to do, I mean, it has to do to survive. And I think we're very much like that, that there is a part of us that is not necessarily shown, but it has that capacity to continue to go deep as the Bible talks about, deep call it out unto deep, where it finds that spot and digs the ground and pierces the hard ground to find that water that many years after, if that tree was to tell their story, you're like, would be wow. And it's the same with us, where we find patches sometimes that there are persons on the outside that may come, and yes, we appreciate what they do, but there are some parts of us that is almost as if it's unreachable. But that's where we have to, and that's why I think that when a person becomes hopeless, there's nothing you can do for a hopeless person. Because what they have basically said is, I have lost the will to live. And once it has gotten to that place, and you can help them to identify the reason why. Why should I continue? Until that is ascertained, it's all gone. Nobody commits suicide unless there is hopelessness. Why do I continue? Why continue? There's no need to. There's no benefits. And I think it is getting to that place in that grief where you see the little shoot start coming out, and you're starting to have a little insight of, yes, my wife, my husband, my what has gone. But when I see little Johnny comes to the room, my grandson, and that light comes shining in and all, So it is the person, and that is what they have to take to rebuild themselves. So the gist of what I'm saying is, there's a part of rebuilding that they have to participate, and they have to give, and they have to produce, and they have to do whatever it takes to reframe themselves, or have what we call the rebirth of who they are.
Yeah, I like that, and I love that. That's a good tie-in, really, to where we're coming from, in that we then, therefore, as the supporters of such people, we create an environment for them to discover that for themselves. So that is kind of the link between everything, is that it's not our job to fix them. That's not our role. Our role is to create an environment where it feels safe for them to begin to reach for and begin to consider the context of hope. But we can't guarantee it, you're right. We may never get there, right? But what we want to be clear on is, we don't want to have made the situation worse. We don't want to have added more suffering to existing suffering. We want to be there in a compassionate way that allows us to give them the point in them to say, oh, you need me. You can't survive this without me. No, no, actually, I believe in your capacity to find that hope. I believe in your capacity to find the reason to live. As we continue in the framework, we will talk about integrating the wisdom, embracing a new identity, and finding purpose in your grief. Those are the three things we're going to also look at as part of this series. When we get to those points, those are the things we're trying to hold space for them to begin to uncover, so that they can continue in that journey. Wow. Okay. Well, that's been quite an exploration. Final words from each person, what you're taking away from today, and we'll kind of end the call there. I'll come to you, Lauren, first. What are you taking from today?
Just that thought. Not the takeaway, but just that thought you guys are speaking. I remember Ian, and I don't even know if this fits, but you can see it. Yeah. I remember Ian told a story where, I don't know if his father told this story, like a boy was drowning, somebody came to save him. I think that person died again.
Yeah.
And then when persons were like saying anything to you, said, what will I tell him to come save me? Just cold, And I also think of persons who, like, somebody saved the person from, say, a car accident or something, pull them from out of the way of a time, for example. And then they go sue that person to say, oh, he put my arm too hard, I don't know why that came to my mind. So I was saying that if people, you can be giving persons help, but if they don't see it as help, they're not going to see it until their eyes are open.
Right. Thank you for that. And that's why we were talking earlier about asking the question, how can I be of service? How can I help? Right. Thank you very much for that. Herbert, what are you taking away?
I think the first one you read is still just resonating in my mind, just the whole issue of just being present. And sometimes being present is enough. So
Yeah, I love that. Yeah. Thank you. Claudette, what about you?
It's important to do the inner work on yourself. That puts you in the best place to support others. And also how important creating the environment is, so that person feels that they feel supported and listened to and feel empowered to find answers within themselves.
Thank you so much for that. And I'm taking away the fact that whenever we're supporting people, we should be pointing to their own capacity as well to be resourced. All right. Okay. Here's